Hello. Good evening, everyone. This is Anais Mitchell, who I think you all know. And we are absolutely delighted to have you in London with us. As Hadestown is playing on the other side of town, we're going to be here talking about the kind of mythic underpinnings of that work and also listening to a lot of the songs as well. So I kind of wanted to talk to you, first of all, about how you found Orpheus, or how he found you.
Yeah, like the story?
Yeah, I mean, so you were young, you had your illustrated Greek myths.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah, right. I first encountered the Orpheus and Eurydice myth in the Delarre's book of illustrated Greek mythology. Maybe you know it. I now have got it for my kids.
How old were you?
I don't know, maybe 8 or something. Right. And there was, something about it kind of grabbed me early on. And it's not that I studied classics or anything, or that was a big mythology person. I did encounter the myth a couple other times, like the movie Black Orpheus, and this other movie called L'Orphée, the Cocteau movie. But really, like, the idea for the thing, I was in my early 20s, I was just out of college. I was starting a career as a singer-songwriter, and I would kind of like take any gig anywhere, for any money. And I was on this really long drive at night, and some melody and lyrics kind of dropped into my lap, and they were the chorus of Wait for Me.
And was someone waiting for you, or was it just kind of...
Yeah.
Really? Who?
No, totally. It was about my guy.
Right.
Yeah, and the lines went, wait for me, I'm coming, in my garters and pearls. This was the original thing. With what melody did you barter me from the wicked underworld? And the garters and the pearls was kind of like this guy that I was like, I'm going to marry you. I was just running around trying to be a folk singer, but I'm going to marry you.
So you imagined that if you were dragged down to hell, he would come and get you?
I'm not sure that I went that far. It just kind of came out of nowhere, and then I was like... And I think the other thing is I was hungry to maybe try my hand at writing a longer form story with songs. Like, I love songs so much, and always have been really into... songs like as literature kind of, or storytelling. I love the balladry from this side of the pond, and I love like the Texas songwriter tradition, like Townes Van Zandt, which is kind of a almost like little novella inside of a song. But I remember going to even my favorite songwriters and noticing that I would start to like look at my watch like partway through the concert, and on the other hand, I would watch like a terrible movie all the way to the end, because I wanted to find out what happened, and so I did have like a desire to see what would happen to like string a bunch of songs together
to make it into a narrative.
Yeah.
And back to Orpheus, and you're in Vermont looking at your book of illustrated Greek myths. Did you feel like, that's ancient Greece, you're in Vermont, but did you feel like that was happening underneath the ground where you were? I mean, what's wonderful about these myths is the way that they can travel. So you're in Vermont, you've got an ancient Greek myth, and then you bring it to Louisiana. So how did that happen? How did the move happen for the myth as you were writing it?
Yeah. I love that. I had this kind of flashback to being a kid in Vermont, and I grew up in this beautiful, my parents were like hippie back to the landers. I grew up on a sheep farm, kind of in the middle of nowhere in New England, and I remember that books that I read, I would always picture like the landscape where I was.
Yes.
Even like I remember reading like in the Old Testament about Mount Sinai, and I pictured that it had like pine trees on it.
Yeah.
And then later in my life, I actually went there, and I was like, oh, it's a rock.
Hang on. Yeah.
Yeah. But Orpheus. Sorry, what was the other one?
So I suppose we're getting to a song in a minute. Don't worry. The way that we take the myths and accommodate them to our landscape was essentially what you've done with Orpheus, and then you took it to Depression-era Louisiana, and now it's come to London, and it has changed in its movement to London slightly, if you haven't seen it. But I think what connects all these different versions of Hadestown is Hades. We can take many routes to get there, but Hadestown itself remains the same. So shall we
Yeah. Can
Go
I just,
down?
let me answer your thing really fast, and then we'll go down. Yeah, just the Louisiana thing. I think it's interesting that you mentioned that, because it's not like it doesn't. If you look at the script of Hadestown, it doesn't say like this show is set in New Orleans, you know. But it is kind of a touchstone, like it always kind of has been stylistically for the show. And part of it is just the music. You know, I write on the guitar, and from very early on, I was working with Michael Chorney, one of my 2 orchestrators, and then we made the studio record in 2010, which had Todd Sikaflus producing, and he became an arranged orchestrator also. And those guys are like very into, you know, jazz music, and the trombone became a big part of the sound, and this sort of like prepared guitar. And there was also something about New Orleans that, like, it is a mythic town. It feels like a mythic city. Yeah. And it's right there at the crossroads of, like, you know, basically the climate catastrophe is played out in that town, because it's right there on the water. And this also became important in Hadestown, this sort of like clash of capitalism and climate, or like industry versus nature.
And yet in New Orleans they keep singing.
Yes. Thank you for that. So we're going to sing now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fantastic. So Way Down we're going to have now.
I'll give this to you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. How's everybody doing? I'm so lucky to be joined by my incredible friend, and also the guitar master of the Hadestown show. He's not over there right now, but this is David Delarre, who plays guitar in the West End Hadestown, among many other projects. It's up? Oh, hey, there you go. Okay. Get to hell or the Hadestown. Ain't no difference anymore. Way down, Hadestown, way down under the ground. Hound dog howling, the whistle blow, chain come roll, crickety clack. Everybody trying to get a ticket to go. Those who go, they don't come back. They're going way down, Hadestown, way down under the ground. Winter's night, summer's away. Hear that high and lonesome sound of my husband coming forth to bring me home to Hadestown. Way down, Hadestown, way down to the ground. You can sing if you want to. Down there's a bunch of stiffs. Brother, I'll be bored to death. Gonna have to import some stuff just to entertain myself. Give me more feed in the tin. Give me a crate of the fruit of the vine. Takes a lot of medicine to make it through the winter time. Way down, Hadestown, way down under the ground. Every little penny in the wishing well, every little nickel on the drum. On the ground, shiny little heads and tails. Where'd you think they come from? They come from way down. Hadestown, way down under the ground. Everybody hungry, everybody tired. Everybody slaved by the sweat of his brow. The wage is nothing and the work is hard. It's a graveyard in Hadestown. Way down, Hadestown, way down under the ground.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. We talked a little bit about lyrics and how they came down to you, or indeed come up. And you've talked about this idea of long-lost lyrics, and you're working with old stories, and you've done this in other parts of your music career as well. How does that change how you write if you're working with a pre-existing story, a kind of a mythic story?
Yeah. That's kind of like my wheelhouse, you know. Yeah, I didn't like set out for that to happen, because I sort of started out, I wanted to be a singer-songwriter, and I was under the influence of like Ani DeFranco and Dar Williams and Tori Amos, and like I wanted to emote on a microphone.
So did you want to tell your own stories to start off with? Was that the initial?
I think that's right. I mean, it was that whole era of women in the 90s was like Lilith Fair era. It was very like connected to slam poetry, and it's like, this is who I am, here's how I see the world. And that's kind of where I started out. And then I just kept finding my way back to traditional music, and it just like a rabbit hole that like sucked me in. And very influential for me was Gillian Welch, Time the Revelator record. Like I discovered in college, and for the first time, like I heard music that it felt like, ooh, this is like weird and beautiful and idiosyncratic to her, but also it feels like it's ancient and it could have existed 100 years ago. And
do you feel like you're in a long line of singer-songwriters? Like you're just like picking up a baton or a guitar in, just another link is essentially in a story?
Yeah, and I think it's like a relief almost. And you're a writer too, and like it's, you can really stress yourself out thinking that you have to come up with this shit from scratch, but you don't. Like it really is all.
You can just use the old stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and whether we know it or not, like we're standing on the backs of who came before us, and there's only so many stories, and there's only so many notes in the scale. I mean,
so if stories resonate with you, then you will use them. And then I guess the question is, these are old stories written in sort of books, and we would think that they're fixed. And did you ever feel like, oh, this story is sacred, I can't mess with it? Because you have changed these myths. Was that a leap emotionally and imaginatively?
It's interesting because, because I spoke about trad music, and I certainly like part of my life as a songwriter has been kind of reinterpreting old songs, and there always felt like there was the task was to, how do I sing this old song but actually feel it in my heart and stand in my own shoes and I remember it's interesting because David plays with Eliza Carthy and sometimes Martin Carthy, your legendary balladeer here, and I remember talking to Martin Carthy one time about the ballads and like, and him saying, oh, they're not fragile, like they can handle it, it's like they've been getting messed with for hundreds and hundreds of years, and the truth is whatever we do will fall by the wayside or not, And
I suppose it's the bits that are meaningful to you that you carry on, reimagine, but by your reimagining you keep them going forwards.
Yeah, like ideally it's like you breathe life into it somehow.
You revivify.
Yeah.
So shall we have a song that has been revivified, which is Wedding Song?
But thank you.
I'm reminding her what the songs are, because I'm the only one with a list, so...
So we're going to do, this is, a lot of these songs, because I worked on them for so long, and they evolved in different ways, there's like, there's a sort of condensed song version, and then if you were to go to the West End, you'd see it kind of more exploded with some intro, recitative scene, and then like a bridge that goes somewhere else, and then an outro, but we're just going to do kind of, this is the straight up on the rocks.
Straight up on the rocks.
Do you hear that? for us, and with their gold be generous. All the fashion in the pan, all the fashion for your hand. The river's gonna give us the wedding band. Honey, tell me if you're able, who's gonna lay the wedding table? Time is being what they are. Dark and getting darker all the time. Love it when I sing my song. All the trees gonna sing along, and then they're gonna bend their branches down, lay their fruit upon the ground. The almond and the apple, and the sugar from the maple, and the trees are gonna lay the wedding table. The wedding bed, times being what they are, hard and getting hard all the time. Love it when I sing my song. All the birds gonna sing along, and they'll come flying from all around, lay their feathers on the ground. We'll lie down and lie down, a pillow beneath our heads, and the birds gonna make the wedding bed. And the trees are gonna lay the wedding table, and the river's gonna give us the wedding bands.
Is able to make people fall in love with him by music and by singing to them. Did it feel scary as a writer, musician, to write the song that puts the cosmos right? I mean, that feels like quite a big deal, right?
Yeah, I think you're talking about the epics, actually, which
the
yeah.
kind of, I'm not going to do it.
Right, I know. Yeah, the epics was like a bane of my existence for like a decade. But basically, if you haven't seen the show, you know, Orpheus he's working on a song that he believes is going to fix what's broken in the world. And it actually was pretty deep in the process of writing the show that I sort of hit upon this idea that he's kind of channeled this melody from Hades and Persephone, the gods. And it's the problem with the world is also the problem in the marriage of these gods, and he sort of figures out that they have forgotten their own song of their love, and that if he can go to the underworld and return it to them, you know, return their melody to them, that could fix the world. And so once I discovered that. I had put a lot of effort into trying to write like the most poetic music ever for Orpheus to like turn
fix
into
the
metaphors.
world.
Yeah, and like it was going to be, you know, lots of internal rhymes and very metaphorical. And then it just more and more it felt like what his gift is this pure, very naive, simple gift of his music. And so there really was no end to the amount of rewriting that I did to those songs. And then honestly, like, I'll do it again. Like, I rewrote it for the West End. If we go to Australia, I'm going to probably have to rewrite it again.
So this process will never be over. You will...
Yeah, but you know, there's actually like, and here's some lines that I wrote at one point that are on the cutting room floor, but they always kind of moved me. And I can remember Andre de Shields doing them in a workshop one time. It was like, yeah, something about that Orpheus, there was one song he was working on he could never seem to finish, a song about this broken world that he rewrote again and again, as though if he could find the words, he could fix the world with them. And that's kind of a feeling that I've had.
It's a beautiful impulse and a beautiful piece piece of music. And then I think we need to talk about the staging. And I know that this is a work of many people, and many people are involved. You know, the heart of it is your songwriting. But I think something very beautiful in the staging is where his song creates a flower, so music manifests physically as beauty. And was that a kind of a key moment in the conceiving of the piece? How did that come about?
Yeah, this is a kind of a cool, weird story. So when I was working on the studio record of Hadestown, which came out in 2010, I was working with my friend Peter Nevins, who's this beautiful artist. He lives in Oregon, and he's a linoleum block print maker.
Wow.
And we had sort of decided that he was going to make these portraits for each of the characters in Hadestown, and that this was going to be the album art. And so each of the characters, like, we spoke about it, and they all kind of had an object. Like,
right.
Hades has, he's wearing like a fedora, and he's holding a songbird on his hand. And the Fates are, they're like editing film.
Right.
With
because
scissors.
in classical myth they are snipping threads.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we mostly would speak about, like, well, let's talk about what this character might be holding, but we didn't speak about Eurydice. And then he came to me with this portrait of her with her eyes closed, and she's holding this flower, and it's this tattoo, which is on the cover of the record.
Yeah.
And I was like, why did you give her a flower? You know, and he said, I don't know, it just felt right.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, it does feel right. And I was still working on the songs for the record at the time. And I was trying to write a song for Eurydice where she sort of expresses her regret in the second act in the underworld. And I wrote that song Flowers because of this image. And it was really this experience that I feel like any of us who worked on the show, Rachel Chavkin for sure, you know, the costumes, props, sets, choreography, everything, there's always the feeling of like, the thing already exists, and you're just digging it out of the ground, like
a sculpture, like a piece of marble that you're.
The sculpture in the stone.
Yeah.
And you'd see something and be like, oh, that's the sculpture in the stone. And so I had written Flowers, and then I think that the stage direction I'd written for what happens when Orpheus sings just goes, flower magic, period. And I was imagining like flowers fall from the sky
everywhere.
like, yeah,
flowers all over the stage. Yeah.
Right. And I sort of gave that to Rachel, and somehow she and David Newman, I think, the choreographer, arrived at like, it's just a single flower. It's just a spontaneous thing. And then it kept revealing itself. Like at first it was just the one moment when Orpheus did it, and then it was like, oh, of course, you know, when Hades sings to Persephone, this is going to happen again. And then it was like, oh, of course, you know, when she goes to the underworld, when Eurydice goes to the underworld, she's going to leave it behind, and he's going to pick it up. And it just got passed around. It felt like it was this...
really emblematic.
Yeah.
We are going to have flowers, but not yet. Sorry. But we are going to have a Eurydice song. All I've ever known.
Okay.
Yeah?
You take me in your arms, and suddenly this go. Now I wanna hold you tight. I don't wanna go back to lonely life. I don't know how or why, Orpheus. Who am I that I should get to hold you? But when I saw you all alone against the sky, it's like I'd known you all along. I knew you before we met. I don't even know you yet. All I know is someone I have always known. All I know is you're someone I have always known. I don't even know you now. I wanna hold you close. I don't wanna ever have to let you go. Suddenly there's sunlight, bright and warm. Suddenly I'm holding the world in my arms. Say that you'll hold me forever. Say the wind won't change on us. Say that we'll stay with each other, and it will always be like this. I'm gonna hold you forever. The wind will never change on us, long as we stay with each other, and it will always be like this.
Thank you. That was so beautiful. Now, I think we've gathered that this has been a long process, the writing, the creating. Sort of 2006, you started writing?
Like maybe even before that, but we did
Yeah.
a production in 2006.
And I'm imagining that when you started out, you were possibly identifying with Orpheus as the sort of the young, creative musician. And has that changed over the years? I mean, when I see it, I slightly identify with Persephone, you know.
I feel you.
Yeah. How about you? When you look at these characters, has your sort of identification changed? Who have you fallen in love with in and out of over the years?
Yeah, definitely. I think when I started writing it, I identified with I was right out of school. I was like idealistic and coming kind of up against the real world and like, you know, what that was politically, and also like now you have to get a job and pay the rent and whatever. And then as the years went by, I definitely identified with other characters, Eurydice for sure, and the span of the writing of it was so long that like certainly I used to identify with the young lovers, and then now like there's this other love story. Like there are these two really important love stories, and one is the young one and one is the old one, and it's like these gods that have been together, and they're just like the question of like, can there be redemption for them? Can their love rekindle? Can there be, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I say Persephone. My husband is in the audience.
Yeah, hey.
It's more about the wine, I think, is the thing.
I identify with the older couple now more than I did before. But I will also say that Hermes became very important to me because he became, obviously, in the rewriting, you know, as we headed for Broadway and then the West End, that like he's a narrator and he's the storyteller who's going to tell the sad story again, even though it breaks his heart every time. And I do identify with that.
And going back to the myth, to Orpheus and Eurydice, Perseus, you have changed these characters considerably. So Persephone is an older woman, a sort of jaded older woman. Yeah. In the original myth, which I'm sure you all know, she's a very young girl who is stolen from her mother and taken down to the underworld and held captive. Likewise, Eurydice is chased by a man, and that's why she steps on a snake and dies. So you have given these women a different sort of story. And was that an active choice? You know, these myths were originally a product of a different society, different sorts of authors. Did you want to give them different stories?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Eurydice in the myth, we really know nothing about her. She's just like beautiful, and then she dies. Yeah. That's all we know. And it felt really good to have her, you know, rather than she makes an active choice. Basically,
yes,
she makes an active choice to go to the underworld in this telling of the myth, and Persephone also, like in this telling of the story, she. What's wrong with the world kind of is mostly a Hades problem. He's a sort of compulsive industrialist, and he's the engine of the problem, but she's also part of the problem. Like she's kind of numbing herself, like turning a blind eye to what's happening, is drowning her cares in the wine from scene to scene. And there was something very liberating about her just not being a saint, that she could, for her to have a flaw made her feel more powerful somehow, or more real.
And not to be a child as well, and to be a woman who is making active choices. And you've almost elided Demeter and Persephone, I would suggest. So Demeter, who is her mother, who is in charge of the seasons, and her sadness at her daughter getting stolen is the reasons that we have winter and autumn as opposed to summer and spring. And the musical was written by a woman, directed by a woman, so did you feel like there were female choices at play at all times?
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I didn't set out to find a female director. I just was I was living in New York. I was wanting to develop the piece further for the stage, and I saw some work of Rachel Chadkin's at this tiny theater called Ars Nova, and it was the Great Comet of 1812 by Dave Malloy, and it just blew my mind, and I was like, who's this genius? Like, whoever did that, that's who I want. And it turned out it was Rachel. But it did turn out to be kind of significant that we both were women, and she certainly pushed at all times for like these female characters to be present and vocal in the scenes, and not just be witnesses and bystanders.
Speaking of Persephone, shall we have Our Lady?
Okay, let's do it. Now would be a good time to get a drink from the bar. You want to? Please join us on this one. We gotta make it feel like we're in an underworld speakeasy. Yeah?
I'm gonna take the lead.
Okay. Tune it up. In the very earliest version of this show was called A Crack in the Wall, before the title of Hadestown appeared, and I had this idea that like Persephone in the underworld has this, you know, the binocular machines that you would have like at the seashore, where you put a quarter in and you can see the ocean, and that she's got one of these machines in the underworld, and she's got it trained on a crack in the wall, and she can see the stars in the night sky. Fun fact. I don't know about you boys, but if you like me, then hanging around this old man hole is bringing me down. 6 feet under, getting under your skin. Cabin fever is a setting in, and you're stir crazy, stuck in a rut. You could use a little pick-me-up. I can give you what it is you crave. A little something from the good old days. Hey, I got the wind right here in a jar. I got the rain on tap at the bar. I got sunshine up on a shelf. Allow me to introduce myself. Brother, what's my name? My name is
Our Lady of the Underground.
Brother, what's my name?
Our Lady of Ways, Our Lady of Means.
Brother, what's my name? My name is
Our Lady of the Upside Down.
Wanna know my name? I'll tell you my name. Persephone. the sea. Oh, maybe these just ain't enough. Maybe you're looking for some stronger stuff. I got a sight for the soldier's eye. When was the last time you saw the sky? Wipe away your tears, brother. Now that I know how you feel, I can see you're blind. You love the sadness of it all. Look a little closer and everything will be real. Look a little closer. There's a crack in the wall. Ladies and gentlemen, Delarre. You want stars, I got a sky full. Put a quarter in the slot, you'll get an eyeful. You want the moon, yeah, I got her too. She's right here waiting in my pay-per-view. Ooh, how long's it been? Little moonshine, ain't no sin. Tell my husband to take his time. What the boss don't know, the boss won't mind. Nice work, everyone. That was really supportive.
I'm really interested in the Fates and their role in Hadestown and in our world and free will. But let's start with the Fates and how were they there to start off with?
Yeah, they were.
Okay. Were you scared of them? How did they?
Always. Always scared of them. Yeah, they... In Hadestown, I mean, the Fates kind of represent, like, they always have been this kind of just vicious trio of women, like very embittered, and kind of they represent fatalism on the one hand versus like sort of Hermes and Orpheus, who represent more of the free will. And it really, as the show evolved, it became deeper and deeper, this idea that the Fates are like these voices in the head.
Yeah. And
they really bully us. All of the characters kind of in turn get bullied by the Fates.
And essentially, Eurydice's choice to go into the underworld isn't Hades persuading her, it's the Fates who are chasing her. And free will in Hadestown, does it exist?
Good question. Yeah, I mean, I think that Orpheus, like the whole beautiful kind of archetypal story is that he is this boy who believes like he might be able to change the rules of the world. Like maybe he could change the rules of the world. And what I see in him is like he has that vision when he's at the beginning of the story. He's got that vision. He has a hard time actually dealing with the real world, but he can see how it could be, and he's pursuing that. And the tragedy of it is that by the time we get to the end of the story, it's as if he's seen too much. Like he's seen too much of the world the way that it is, and he can't hang on to that vision. And but the crazy thing about Orpheus is that he's like a hero for us all.
Yeah.
Even though you don't get the Hollywood ending from him, like he doesn't succeed in the end, but we're
not going to tell them the end yet.
Oh, we know, yeah. These guys know. I think they know. But that there's something inherent in the myth that's like he didn't make it, but someone else is going to try again. Like that's what happens, and and it happens in the world where young people come up. They look at the world. They're like, this is wrong. This has to change. And then we get older and we get jaded, and we need a new.
You need young people, or you need those sort of voices to remind you to maintain your optimism.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's interesting about the mythic world that you're dealing with is when those stories were written, they believed in the gods, or we believe that they believed that the natural world was beyond their control. So the seasons change, the thunder, the floods, that's nothing to do with them. So therefore you invent a God to explain it. We now know that we do have impact on the environment, and so that changes. And was that integrated into your storytelling, this sort of new knowledge that we do have impact on the world around us?
Yeah, I love that. I always found it very rich, like this idea that there's a troubled marriage between the king of industry and, you know, because Hades, even in the ancient mythology, is known as the wealthy one, and, you know, what comes out of the earth is oil and coal, and that he's married to the queen of the seasons and nature, and that there is this troubled relationship. It felt like the climate themes came from the mythology, like that they weren't superimposed upon it. And yeah, I also like the Dust Bowl was kind of an inspiration, because that was a very early version of like industrial farming practices in the States that led to this just crazy, you know, what felt like an act of God.
Yeah, a transformative landscape that man had created.
Yeah, I remember like thinking that phrase "act of God" is so interesting now, because we do have, as you're saying, things that are basically like a man-made act of God.
So I'm keeping an eye on the time. We're going to go to flowers, speaking of the environment and nature and our impact on it, because I think this is a beautiful song about that.
So this is the one that came from this tattoo. Cue this. I can't remember. What I wanted was to fall asleep, close my eyes and disappear, like a petal on a stream, a feather on the air. Lily white and poppy red, I trembled when he laid me out. The thing he said when you put down, nothing gonna wake you now. Dreams are sweet until they're not. Men are kind until they aren't. Flowers bloom until they rot and fall apart. Isn't anybody listening? I open my mouth and nothing comes out. Nothing gonna wake me now.
So we've talked about the way that you're working with old stories, sort of digging up old lyrics and old ideas to work with and to create anew, but there also seems to be a little bit of premonition in your writing, because I'm thinking about The Wall, which you wrote perhaps before that was a thing that we talked about quite as much as we do now. What was the thinking behind it initially, and have you been interested in how your myth has changed as a result, as a response to real politics?
Yeah, that song is like a mystery to me, you know. I'm a very slow writer. Like, I really think of myself as a very slow, methodical rewriter, and it usually takes me like months and years to finish a thing, and that song really, wrote it in like 15 minutes. It just like happened, and it was in, I want to say it was 2006 probably, and it soon became like the song at my songwriter shows. Like, everyone wanted to hear it, and I played it a million times. You know, I never expected it to mean something different. And then, of course, like in 2016, we were taking the show off Broadway, and that's right when Trump was campaigning and then won the election on this rhetoric, and you know, almost to the word, almost to the letter, because he was rallying with it, and it was a call and response, just like it is in the song. So it was very surprising, and it's been surprising also to see it evolve again. You know, in the post era. It's almost like it has gone back to feeling more like an archetypal song, because of course at the time everyone was like, oh, it's about him. And
it can be about other things as well. It doesn't just have to be about that. But I suppose it's a lesson to us about how myth isn't static at all. You know, it will change and respond. Like, even in your writing of a piece of work, something can change in response to how the world is. So shall we have the song that everyone wants to hear? Shall we have The Wall? Let's do it. Amazing.
David and I were in Wales last night. There's no walls there. Yeah, we were at the Hay Festival, which is this like huge book festival, with a bunch of the company of Hadestown, mostly like the swings, who were able to get away because there was obviously the show was happening at night, and we played some stuff from the show, and this was one of them. And then we had a sing-song in the hotel lobby until very late. I tried to get everyone to sing Peter Gabriel, In Your Eyes, and nobody knew it. These guys know it.
Don't think you fit in the lobby.
Where were you last night?
That's why we build the wall, we build the wall to keep us free.
we have got. Because we have what they have not. Because they want what we have got. The enemy is poverty, and the wall keeps out the enemy. And we build the wall to keep us free. That's why we build the wall. We build the wall to keep us free. What do we have that they should want? My children, what do we have that they should want? What do we have that they should want? We have a wall to work upon. We have work and they have none, and our work is never done. My children, and the war is never won. The enemy is poverty, and the wall keeps out the enemy. And we build the wall to keep us free. That's why we build the wall. We build the wall to keep us free. We build a wall to keep us free.
Now we're coming towards the end of the story, and we believe we all know how it ends. And it ends in tragedy. And we know that from the beginning. It's seeded from the beginning of the piece. Why do you think we need to tell stories that we know the endings to and keep telling them?
Yeah, I know it's one of the great mysteries about this myth, and I think one of the reasons people have returned to it again and again. You know, he could have, if he had gotten out, what would this story even feel like? Like, what would it even mean?
Would we still sing the song if it had ended happily?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's like really, there's a feeling of sort of collective ritual in the telling. That's what I feel when I saw the show on the West End a few nights ago, and there's this beautiful performer, Melanie Labarre, playing Hermes right now, and just like that final monologue about, you know, it's really challenging to ride that line as that character, I think, between feeling the feelings but also not feeling them for other people, and like just kind of that's how it goes. This is how it goes, but here we all are together.
And
telling
it's
it again.
The collective feeling of the emotion that is important, I guess, that makes it powerful. You know, it's a catharsis, perhaps. That's what's happening for us all.
Yeah. Hope so.
Now, in the end, with Hermes, he says, we're going to keep doing this because we think it might end differently. It's optimism that keeps us singing this song, because we think there might be a point when we get to the end of this and something different happens. Now, as the creator of Hades Town, have you ever imagined it ending differently?
That's so funny, because I wouldn't want it to end differently. Right. You know what I mean? Although, but I want to tell a funny story, which is that, like, because we were talking about this last night. Our original Orpheus on Broadway, Reeve Carney, this beautiful man, like he did the show for, you know, years. He did it at the National. He did it on Broadway, and finally he was coming to the end of his tenure, and all of us were like, we got to orchestrate a situation where he actually gets to walk out. And because he and Eva, who used to play Eurydice, are actual partners in real life. Like, they fell in love on the show, and they're still together. God bless them. Yeah. And it was like, we got to figure this out so that he can walk out of the underworld with Eva on his last night. You know, not during the show, but during those sort of celebratory speeches at the end. And so we set up this whole thing, and I even wrote some like dialogue for Hermes to deliver to him. And then Reeve, in the just spirit of the moment, got to the top of the stairs, and he just turned around and gave a huge a huge wave and smile to the audience. So it didn't process for him that he was able to do it. So that was the one moment where he could have done it,
but he just can't.
He didn't do it. Yeah.
Obvious. Yeah. Well, on that note, we're going to have our last song. Cups.
Yes. Let's do it.
We're running over a tiny bit. I hope you all don't mind.
I want to say that a huge thank you to you, Gavanndra Hodge, tonight, and you powdered my face in the bathroom. It was really intimate, and you're wonderful and so intelligent. And also thanks to David. I'm so psyched to get to play with you finally after all these years. And thanks to you all for being here. I don't know who you are. So glad you're here, and we can sing this last one together also. This is a song that I tried to cut from the show like many times. Every production we did, I was like, let's cut this one. Thank you. Thank you for noticing that. It was perfectly in tune, but I was... Good night.
One more time, folks. Anais Mitchell. Folks, if you're sticking around for the signing, it's going to take place in the next couple of minutes. It's just going to be on the left-hand side. So just right along the left-hand side of the store. If not, folks, you can head straight on through, right out to the exit there. But yeah, folks, if you're here for the signing, it's going to go right around here. Try not to bottleneck, just because people do need to get out. So just going to be queuing just along this barrier here now, folks. This is the line here, so it's just right along the side of the barriers here. Thank you very much for joining us here, folks. See you again soon. Look after one another. Peace out.